Well, it was all on the line for Toronto's PWHL team as they took on Minnesota in the fifth and deciding game of their playoff series.
Good looks on the power play. Another chance now. Victoria back to Rebecca Leslie. She scores!
In front of a sold-out crowd at Coca-Cola Coliseum, Rebecca Leslie tying the game for Toronto in the second period just 40 seconds after Minnesota went ahead. But the visitors took the lead again midway through the third, and they'd add two empty netters for a 4-1 victory. Minnesota won 3 straight games to move on to the finals and will now play Boston for the inaugural PWHL Championship. And for more on last night's game, we're joined live by sports journalist and author Laura Robinson. Laura, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Let's start with the collapse of Toronto because they came out strong. I was at the very first game here in the city, night one at Coca-Cola. It was electric. There was a lot of hope for this team, the #1 seed, and now we're out. What happened?
Well, it is the best hockey in the world, and there can only be one winner. But I really think when you look at the stats of last night's game, they had many chances to score. They had plenty of shots on goal, and they missed all but one of them. And they're going to have to go back and reevaluate. I don't think they should do that right now. It won't be constructive for them to look at what they actually failed to do last night until they can calm down a bit from this, very serious loss. 4-1. I mean, the last 2 goals, as you said, were on an empty net. Nonetheless, they had an extra skater, an extra player on the ice, and they still were not just not able to score, but they weren't able to stop the other team from scoring. So, it's, I think we can all go to that place of woulda, coulda, shoulda, but the point is they didn't. And that's okay too. This is a huge win. This PWHL is a huge win for women, especially for women athletes.
No question about that. And I think the bottom of the line is as well here in Toronto when it comes to hockey. We're used to the coulda, woulda, shoulda, male or female teams in their leagues. When it comes to Minnesota, I mean, like I said, night one, it was a no contest. It looked like Toronto was just skating circles around Minnesota, taking the first 2 at home. But to see a team like Minnesota, they were the underdogs here. They were picked by Toronto to face them, to come back and win 3 in a row, and to put on such an amazing show as well to highlight women's hockey. What were your key takeaways of the series?
Well, first of all, I think you're actually in an advantage when you are the underdog. First of all, there isn't the kind of pressure. There is pressure. You want to, you've got to make up 3 games now. You've got to win all 3. On the other hand, Minnesota isn't seen as a hockey city the way Toronto is seen as a hockey city. And, you can't bank on the Leafs at all. So I think the women from Toronto did feel a huge amount of pressure. But Minnesota, I think, had that kind of understated, we're here to win 3 games. And the other thing is that, they put Maddie Rooney in net, and she is just spectacular as a goalie. And, when you watch the replays, you see how well Minnesota worked as a team around the net, too. So they really... They had it sort of, you could actually say intellectually on the ice. They knew what they needed to do in almost like a chess game.
When it comes to Natalie Spooner, she went down in Game 3. How big of a loss was she to the last 3 games here for Toronto?
Obviously, losing Natalie Spooner was a huge loss. She's not just the top scorer for Toronto, but she was the top scorer for the entire league. But again, at this professional level, you have to be prepared with a plan B and a plan C and even a plan D. So when your top player does go down, that you have, you do have a lot of skill in the other players. So like Sarah Nurse is a fabulous player, right? So we needed to see the other one step up to the point of winning as opposed to just shots on goal. And so I hope that Natalie's knee mends 110%, and then that we see them coming back next year. Like, remember, this is the inaugural year, and that she's really having a great season next year.
Yeah, it would have been really sweet to see Toronto take home that inaugural cup here. Laura, as a sports journalist, as you reflect on women's hockey and the role that it's played and the level at which it's been elevated through the PWHL, what are your hopes for next season and the season after that and the season after that?
Well, first of all, my hopes are that we see an increase in girls hockey at the grassroots level, that when everyone keeps hearing she shoots, she scores, and that voice, the commentary voice is a female voice saying that girls and their parents get the idea that girls have as much right to the as ice time as boys have, and that the arenas across Canada ensure that it's a safe, equitable place for girls to play. So that's the first thing I'm looking for, that we see an increase in girls hockey, but that we see an increase in girls and women's sport in general. We know that after COVID, a lot of girls dropped out of sport, and we need to see, they were already not represented in the way that they should be. They get really negative messages about their bodies, etc., when they're athletes. So we need to see an increase in sport for girls and for women coming out of this.
If you can see it, you can be it. I got chills when you just said what you did about she shoots, she scores. Laura Robinson, she nailed it. Thank you so much for joining us here on CP24.
Thank you for inviting me.
Have a great weekend.